Hello, hello.
Hello?
Hello, is anyone out there?
It's
a mom's night out.
On today's episode, Misty Lynch joins us to discuss financial infidelity and the power dynamic of finances in a relationship. Misty is a certified financial planner and life coach. She hosts the unscripted reality show HEARTBROKE and the Demystifying Money podcast, and has served as a finance expert and resource for several media outlets, including the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, CNBC, CNN, and the list goes on and on. Investopedia named her one of the top 100 financial advisors in 2021, and U.S. News and World Report called her one of the 9 women in finance to follow, because sometimes you need life advice and not just financial advice. She is a boss and a wealth of information. When she isn't working, you can find her reading mysteries, skiing on the East Coast, or coaching her kids' basketball and field hockey teams. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. It's going to be a very, very good episode, and I can't wait.
Thank you for having me on. I love talking about this topic. It's such a scary topic, and it's so sensitive for a lot of people, but it's actually a pretty interesting one to dive into, and maybe hopefully we'll get rid of a little bit of shame and guilt that people might be feeling.
I hope
or
so.
some ideas on how they can, really look into their finances if they haven't.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm pumped for this episode.
Me too. I feel like we're going to be talking forever. But I guess this was a new term to me, financial infidelity. Like I saw this news story with you on it a couple months ago, and it was just a concept and a term I'd never given thought to. So can you just define sort of what is financial infidelity?
Sure. It's really any lies or secret behavior when it comes to shared finances in a couple. So it's really, all of us know what infidelity is with romantic relationships. It's really like that with your shared finances. And so it can be a pretty broad range of behaviors and things. I think a lot of people are probably guilty of it in some level. But it can be pretty serious, and it can be a part of a lot of divorces, a lot of things kind of come into play when you're looking at shared finances. So
yeah, I think on that note, we were wondering, how common is it? Because you have lots of clients and you're talking to people about this every day.
Yeah.
Is it a really common thing?
It is. I'd say it's pretty common. And a lot of times when I'm working with clients and they want to do financial planning or investing, I do want to meet with everybody. Usually there's one spouse that's the money spouse or more involved in the finances than the other. And I like to make sure that both of them are at the table just so there's transparency. Yeah. And so sometimes people will be like, oh, wait, what's that account? Or you have how much? Or how they don't even know necessarily how much their partner makes, how much money is coming in and out. And so I think that's why there's a lot of, maybe it's not intentional secrecy, but there's a lot of times where people just don't know what's going on with the money. So the other person who has control can do kind of whatever. And the other person might be like, I can't spend any money, and sometimes it tends to be the woman in the relationship that might be the one who maybe through conditioning or whatever was like, oh, I don't want to deal with the money. That's his job. I deal with the little, the spending and the household shopping. Yeah. And so bringing everybody to the table is kind of helpful to be like, no, this is this account. This is where you find it. Explain this, looking through everything so they can actually make a better plan together.
I love that. So you mentioned that there's some money-related lies. What are those types of money-related lies that you're hearing?
Yeah, I would say the most common would be either spending and shopping that one partner is doing and maybe trying to hide from the other partner. Sometimes there's bank accounts that they have that they don't want their partner to know about. Other times it's a credit card that the other person doesn't know about. A lot of times it's usually around that, those types of things. It could be malicious. It could just not be. Really depends on the couple. But yeah, those are the ones that come up the most.
Yeah, those seem like big lies. So in prep for this episode, we had asked our listeners to share the biggest purchase that they've hidden from their spouse or vice versa. I want to just share some of these.
I want to hear these. I can't wait to hear these.
We'll read them live to you. And then I think could you give your reaction to it? Because I think that would be fun.
All right.
Like red flag or not a red flag. Maybe we should go get our red flags out.
Go get those.
Okay. And I had to group them.
Mandy categorized them.
So we had a lot of beauty purchases. Okay. So the true cost of getting your hair done, eyelash extensions. I think this listener was like, I try to hide them, but then you come home and obviously the husband notices. Botox. We had a lot of Botox and lip filler.
Yeah. Those I think are very common because they're traditionally like that is like something that women are spending money on. And I think there's a lot of pressure for us to, continue to look younger, keep up our appearances. Like we are more, and I just spoke with on my podcast, I had a med spa owner on to talk about it. And like it's starting, bro talks is starting to pick up, but it's not.
I like that term.
Me too.
Yeah, she was saying that, but mostly it's the women that are in there and they want to look good and they have the capability to do this stuff. But I don't think that most men have any clue how much it costs.
No.
Yes.
Not at all.
None. So that one doesn't surprise me at all. I do feel like it's one of those ones where maybe there's a little guilt and shame too for the people who are spending money on it and saying like, okay, this is too much or this is crazy, I should be doing. But I think that's a lot of times because women historically have been like judged and shamed for doing anything because they just freaking want to.
Right.
For
Yes.
themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's not for the family. It's not for the household. It's because I don't want to see this.
That's definitely how I feel when I spend money on those things. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just invested in myself.
Yeah. And I kind of encourage women to be like, okay, sure. Like I don't judge those expenses. They're like, oh, you're gonna, when you see this, and this is why I do it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care. You can just want to, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes with spouses, I think if you have a conversation and then you do it and then they're like, okay, then getting my hair done is not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah,
Something I'm going to do once a quarter probably.
Right.
And
Yeah.
how does that make you feel?
Yeah. Do you want me to just have gray hair?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or that. So
Shocking.
that does not surprise me at all. That one.
Here were some other ones. This user said, or this listener said, the Canada Goose and my husband, the jacket, and my husband had no idea how much it cost until a friend ratted me out. There were lots of clothes and jeans on here. And then one listener said that she doesn't hide purchases from her husband, but she rounds way down.
I'm guilty.
Okay.
Right? So she's lying about the cost, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I do that too.
Yeah, no, I think again, that just goes back to like doing stuff for ourselves and feeling like we're going to have to, make this somehow comfortable for us because we're afraid. Like there's what we're thinking, there's what they're thinking, and what we think they're going to think. And usually what we think they're going to think is you're out of control. Like, what are you doing? And a lot of times it's like, no, and that's where I think the conversations and just the transparency is important. Like I don't shop frequently, but when I do, I'll buy like a lot.
Yeah.
And then I won't go for a while. I'm not one that like just browses. And so my husband was like, what is going on here? Like, did you just buy all of like what's happening? And I'll just be like, yeah, I like this. I got in a couple colors and I don't feel any guilt about it.
Yeah.
Or shame. So he's kind of like,
Okay.
Like they're not going back. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
but we manage our finances, where I have my bank account, he has his, and we have a joint one. And so if the joint one's cool and we are paying for the kids' stuff and I have mine, I kind of like having some freedom in what I can spend. Same with him. He loves buying sneakers. He loves Nike. And I'm like, these are going to sit in a box in the attic. I don't think it's a great investment unless my son magically becomes a size 11 one day and inherits them. But I'm not his mom. I don't want to be like, what did you do that for?
That's
You
such
have
great
so many
advice.
shoes.
I know.
So I like having a little money that we could just do whatever we want with. It just causes
such a
less
good tip.
problems.
And you think it's health? That's totally healthy.
I think so.
Yeah.
As long as everybody knows, like then there's these separate
it's not like I know he
accounts.
has a checking account.
Yeah.
I know he
Yes.
has a credit card, and I know I use like planning software in my business, and I use it at home too, where he can pop on and see what's in my checking account, what's here, and if he wants to, just so that transparency is there. But I don't really have any. I don't know. I feel like once you start to feel like you have to hide things, then it just kind of snowballs
For sure.
into more. And then it's like, well, bigger purchases, bigger things, or I'm going to run and put it in the closet. And then you have this like hoarding, like, it's just like, I don't know.
Slippery
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah, it can be. And also then somebody's like, whoa, this is like, how long have you been hiding this from me? Because it's like any secrets, it feels bad.
Yeah.
To kind of find out.
No, totally. And somebody did write in that they do exactly that, where they have 20% of their salary is deposited into a separate account, and that's her son money.
I feel like that just causes so much, because like, I don't really care if he buys shoes. Like, I don't think he's really going to care if I get my hair highlighted or whatever. But like, if it's coming out of this common pool of money that's always supposed to support us,
and
the ones that are really just because we like to do things sometimes is going to feel like I need to now justify it. So I'd rather just hide it and avoid that conversation.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So interesting.
What's like one of the wildest examples that you've heard? And
I think
I'm sure you have a few.
Yeah, no, and this is this is where
Ours
like
are all tame.
I'll go from like the shopping and the jeans. Like there's definitely a situation where a spouse lost his job and hid it for almost a month, like pretending to go to work. So this is like not financial infidelity spending wise. This is like lying that like money's still coming in. So if you're not the money spouse and you don't see like the paycheck changing or like the behavior, what are you doing? Like the time missing.
Yeah.
And that again, a lot of it's like just afraid of what they're going to think. And I don't know if he thought he would get a new job in between faster or something like that. But that's kind of hard. Like it hurts to be like, you couldn't have just
said it. Yeah. We're a team.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
There's
I
a
would
lot of
say
unpacking
is
there.
a sort
I
of
know.
financial
That
infidelity.
is
On the other side,
heavy.
being like lying about, your
Yeah.
income. And that I think is one of those things that usually it's just being afraid of what you think they're going to say. Like, oh, you're a loser, I'm going to leave you. And
Yeah,
it's like,
you're like,
probably
okay.
not.
You're like,
Probably
okay.
not.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this is for a regular therapist, not a financial person like me.
No, I'm like, ooh, yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
when it
there's a
comes
lot.
to that.
Wow.
Like maybe, because I'm like, who'd be the first person I would talk to? Is my spouse.
Yeah.
Like,
1,000%.
and being
like,
in pain.
hey.
Like, and yeah. And so I'm like, if that's not the situation, there's probably a little more, but that I thought was pretty wild.
That is wild.
Wow.
Yeah, we had one on here of just of spouses hiding from the women. So the men hiding from the women. There were a few interesting ones. There was one of like gambling, scratch tickets, drugs. One woman said, well, he bought me a Louis Vuitton purse, but it was a push present for me, so I guess I couldn't have gotten mad about it.
Nice.
But one of those of like,
Yeah.
then you find out off-road vehicles or just like stuff for outside,
That's my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buying boats and ATVs and snowmobiles.
That like it's funny because I'll see like women feeling bad about spending on like a lip gloss or whatever. And then men will just buy a boat. Yeah. And you're like, it's for the family.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's for the family.
Oh
And
my
you're
gosh.
like,
John, are
okay.
you listening?
How is this possible? Like,
And he's like, I didn't hide it. I drove it in the driveway. I'm
but
like,
that's
what? Like, that was
those are
unauthorized.
massive purchases. And so I feel like men just aren't conditioned to feel shame or guilt about buying stuff that they just straight up want, where women really typically
there's a lot of
have
guilt.
been, because we haven't had access to money in the same way or credit. Like it's fairly new. So we kind of have seen our grandmas and moms be like, have that secret account. Don't say shit about it, because like they
I love
couldn't.
that you said that.
And so men will just be like, I like,
buy that.
Went to, DraftKings and put like, but this is a good idea. This 5G's here because I'm obviously going to make,
I'm gonna win.
profit.
I'm gonna win
I'm
it.
And you're
gonna win.
like, what? You're worried about your hair.
Yeah.
Like it's a
so
different
true.
scale, and it's
so
very,
true.
and a lot of times it's not hard to like find this behavior, because like if you just don't think your spouse is looking, like it might just be looking at a statement and being like, the hell is this?
Yeah.
And trying to maybe ask some questions.
Oh
Wild.
my gosh.
Yep.
That is crazy. What are some? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I guess we kind of unpacked like our next question, which was like, what is the root cause? But I think you kind of like hit the nail on the head. It's like, as women, when we do it, we've been conditioned.
Yeah.
And I love that you said like our parents. And I was telling my daughter the other day, who's 7, like Presley, she was talking about how one of her grandmother said women just were like, her grandmother couldn't play sports growing up. And she was like, that's crazy. And I was like, well, Presley, you know that women just got access to credit cards like pretty recently.
Yeah.
And
In 1974, my husband was alive. Like it's not
Insane.
ancient history.
That is
That is
and
wild.
Presley couldn't believe. She's like, "What do you mean? How did they buy things?" And I was like, "Well, they didn't.
They had to ask for money, or they had to get permission. Like, and so that's where I think women, where like men, like I don't remember my dad ever having to be like, hey, can I buy this if I want to?
Yeah.
He just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of boys and men have seen. And so they do that. And so I think now it's different. Like my daughter couldn't imagine not being able to play lacrosse or whatever sport
Yeah.
she wants to do.
Yeah.
When she's dirty and she's like, running around like, and she can't, I hope she doesn't ever really feel like there's a point where some guy could tell her no. Don't do that,
Yeah.
But it is definitely. And then men, I think the ones that they hide, they're ashamed. Like maybe the gambling, maybe the drugs, maybe the actual infidelity, which is expensive. The romantic infidelity costs a lot of money, so that's going to be hidden. And that's again, they don't want people to know about it because it's something they're ashamed of.
So are there red flags that people should be on the lookout for if they're, you said the shame, but like how does that present, I guess?
A behavior. I think you can see when somebody's acting different, where you might be like, maybe they don't want you to go anywhere near their phone, or maybe they're like, you don't know where they are, sometimes. And so that could be a behavior shift that it could lead you to be a little suspicious, or if you ask questions and they shut you down, or, if you used to be able to access certain things and then you can't.
Yeah.
That would be a red flag to maybe dig in a little further, maybe not confront if you really think something serious is happening without getting a little more information, because if they think you're onto you, you might not be able to then log into the bank anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, go look at some statements. If your name's on the accounts, like you should feel no guilt at all for looking. Yeah. And just kind of seeing what, are the paychecks, does everything look normal? Is something standing out? Is there this big like expense for hotel or DraftKings or
withdrawals?
Or withdrawals that I don't know, or money's being routed to a credit card or bank account I'm unfamiliar with. So I think that if people really start to act a little different, because like when people are doing something they're ashamed of, usually they'll, if somebody's running to the door, grabbing packages and like running upstairs, you might be like, why are you doing?
Like my husband does that more than me.
I've definitely done that.
What are you doing?
I've definitely done that.
Yeah.
Or like
I'm
if
sure
I
a lot
go
of people
shopping,
have, but then like if you address it like and be like, hey, you might be like, okay, fine, like, and then be like, well, why? Like, what's going on? Why do you feel like you're spending more money? And this is some of the stuff I'll talk to people about. And when people just ask them or like care, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, well, I'm really stressed out at work, and like I just, or I hate my clothes. Sure. I feel like I look awful when I go places, and you could be like, okay, well, all right, maybe we just, and that's where I kind of reassess budgets with people a lot, because usually they think they're restrictive, but I'm like, no, we can add in some space for stuff, like what feels better. Like, okay, yeah, you haven't gone shopping since like, I think the suits that I have in my closet were before, like I saw like Express is going out of business, and I'm like, oh my God, everything in my attic is like an Express suit from like probably 2000.
Totally.
Like when you just like fresh graduated
I'm like, can I get money for these now? Are they vintage?
Yeah, they're vintage.
So I might feel sometimes like when I do go shopping and buy a bunch of stuff, it's like, because like it doesn't fit anymore. I've had this since before I had Clark. Like I don't want to wear it, and like, okay. And then it's just like,
I feel
it's
like if there's
fine.
transparency, it's okay. So when clients come to you, right, is it because, and maybe it's a mix, I'm just very interested in this dynamic. Like, has somebody in the relationship discovered that the other person is like hiding money or has the money secrets, or are they coming to you and then they're forced to put on the table because of the conversations with you, and
you're discovering.
I can't even imagine that.
That's probably more likely, because a lot of times I'm working with people. If I'm working with somebody in a divorce, it's post-divorce. So usually I'm working with somebody who now is trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff on his own or on her own. And so I'm not in the pre-phase. I have had one person though that wanted to get a plan done, and I was like, well, does your husband want to be involved? And she's like, I'm just curious how things would be if he wasn't involved. And I was like, she wants to know if she would be okay. And in that case, it was kind of an interesting situation, but you had to be like, okay, like I can see her concerns and really just wanting more education and information. And like, I did have her husband. Like,
I know. I was just thinking that what a powerful thing for her to step up and be like,
and like, they're still together. I mean, it just, I think she wanted to know, like,
she got clarity,
and she did. And so I think now it's like, okay, well, if she wanted to leave, she could leave. If she doesn't want to leave, she doesn't have to leave, but she's not stuck.
Yeah. And now she has a
plan,
I think that maybe
knows. Changed her outlook on things. So
that's powerful.
That was an interesting thing. But usually they'll come in. Usually I'm talking to people who have had something like a job change, or they want to start a business, and they need to kind of figure all this stuff out together. And then it's a lot of transparency. It's not like in a divorce when you have to disclose everything. In this situation you do, but the plan is to have shared goals and to figure it out. But I need to know where everything is, and then I'll look at transaction. That's where some people would be like, you make what?
That's crazy.
That's wild. Okay,
that really is.
Do you ever use the term, this was a new term to me, financial abuse, right? So I want some women that are listening, and even men, to hear this, because we're talking about financial infidelity and hiding things, and it's a form of abuse when you are restricting your partner or not allowing access. That is a form of abuse.
Absolutely.
Can you speak to that at all?
I can. And I think that it's important to know that I think it's 98 or 99% of domestic violence abuse cases come with financial abuse.
Wow.
The way to controls, and that's why I'm a huge proponent for everybody to have a bank account in their own name. Even if it's just like my partner, like he knows about it and stuff. But I mean, ever since I was a kid, like I had my money that I made in my name where no one could clean it out.
Yeah.
No one could shut it down.
Yeah.
And where it's just, you have that, because when you take that away, you lose a lot of your power and a lot of your ability to be safe, in my perspective.
Yeah.
Men or women. If somebody else can come and drain that account and you have nothing, or be like, okay, fine, leave.
Where do you go?
Where are you going to go?
Exactly.
Yeah, you would have nothing.
You'd have nothing. And so that's why it's so common in abuse cases to have some sort of financial abuse, because really, if like when women have windfalls and they're in bad situations, they're gone. Like,
true.
Yeah.
If they get an inheritance, like it's kind of wild. Like the statistics, I saw something from Elevest about like how women will just leave.
Wow.
As soon as
wild.
like they have the financial ability to do that. So how many people are staying in lousy situations because they either gave up control?
Right.
And it seems like I saw something on TikTok. I don't know if you saw this woman where she basically like had this guy who was like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to buy us this house in DC. Bamboozled all of the things. Like none of it was real.
Oh, gosh.
She lost like all her, like he took over the finances and just like went and it was just a crazy person who really just like, she thought it was like Prince Charming. I'm going to take all your problems away. I'm going to take all the responsibility on it. And like he was total grim. Like, so I feel like it seems like, oh, just have somebody else do all this for me and make all the money. Like that sounds amazing. Like, I think it sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Well, like, okay,
Me
this
too.
reminds me of Real Housewives, not to go there, but
Yes.
Teresa Giudice, where she sort of, everyone's like, how could she have not known that was going on? I can see that.
I can totally see it.
Easily. Like she didn't want to deal with it, and she didn't have access into these things, and he was hiding things from her.
I totally see how that
she
could be
went
possible.
to jail because of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's something that a lot of people, and the abuse like that kind of can escalate, and it can be sort of like love bombing in the beginning, like I'm going to take care of everything, and then all of a sudden you have nothing. So I have talked to women after the fact who have to rebuild their lives, and then they get really interested in financial literacy.
Yeah.
They're really interested in it, because before it was like, oh, it sounded good, but I will never be in that situation,
Right.
like ever again.
Yeah,
You know,
so
it's scary.
I feel like it's such a powerful message to anyone listening. Like to have what you just said, you don't have to have your own separate everything, but to have something for yourself.
Yeah.
To have that power for yourself.
Yeah. And if it is a situation of like domestic violence or actual abuse, that's when like, you know, when we're in a healthy marriage and you say, yeah, I have my own bank account because I feel like I'd like to, this is just where I'm going to use money for some of the things that I want to do, you know, with a small percentage of it, is not kind of hiding it. But in those situations, if you know that if your partner knows about it, it's going to get taken from you, then the secret stash is maybe going to save your life at some point.
Wow.
Right.
That's
I think
crazy.
what you said too, of just as long as like your core bank account or is covering everything that you need to have covered, then if there's these, you know, separate pools of money and it's transparent that both partners know this exists, and you can use it for some little like fun life purchases.
Yeah, I think that just
sounds
kind
like
of reduces some stress. I think it's worked for a lot of the people that I worked with, and some of them have full you know, they share everything, and you know, they just have to maybe talk every couple weeks, every month when they're not stressed out or mad, and just kind of make sure like, okay, everything's
Well, that's probably
on
the
track.
issue too, is I think for so long money was such a taboo topic.
Yeah.
Like
It still is. I feel like nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Particularly women, right? Like everyone gets so
like, ooh.
weird when they're like, how much money do you make? And it's like, I feel like what I love about our friendships is we kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
And it's given me so much power in knowing what my girlfriends are making and accomplishing. Like, I'm like, oh, wait, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like you guys have helped level me up in that way.
Yeah, I used to ask like the white guys I worked with, how much are you making?
Yeah.
I don't need to know what
Better
my friends
idea.
are like. I need to know what you guys are
I
making.
know.
Better
And being
idea.
like, okay, now that's my new threshold, because it was, and I've always been in the financial space. Talking about money is like, to me, like second nature. I mean, we grow up like had money and then we didn't, and it was just a constant money conversation and fight like every day at my house. So like to me, like it's pretty normal.
Easy to talk
They're like,
about.
oh my God, you talk about money at the dinner table? I'm like, yeah, you sit right in front
why
of me.
not?
Whereas everybody else is like,
My kids are here listening too. I don't care. And like, I feel like they might have a better
so talk
understanding.
about that. Like, do you think it's important to have money conversations with your children?
Yeah. And I really do, because I think that kids right now, they're going into probably so more debt by the time they're like 18 years old than like ever. So if they have no concept of money and they just think it comes out of, you know, just you tap and that's where it comes from. Like, my kids know that I run a business. They know I work. They've always, you know, seen that.
Healthy.
I have them, you know, they're 10 and 12. And so they have like a debit card. And guess what they learned about buying LOL dolls and stuff like that?
Expensive.
They're not worth it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like my daughter, I think when she was like 8, she was kind of like, eh. Or like if they're at like one of the little kid arcades and stuff, and like they're using $20 of their own money and it's gone in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
They're like, oh wow. Like, so I want them to get that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
I want
smart.
them to get it. And then sometimes when I say like no for certain reasons, or if we do something bigger, or if we say, yeah, we want to go on vacation, I'll be like, all right, yeah, we could probably do that. We're going to save for a couple months. They understand, and it's not like, oh my God, why are you being so awful?
Yeah.
No,
But I
true.
want them to get it, because I think that's probably one of the skills like that. Like, it's just important is like knowing how to like feed yourself healthy foods and like take care of like yourself. I feel like knowing how to understand money is just like, just up there with that.
I love that. We live in such a privileged town and area,
Oh my
right?
God,
Like
this town is gorgeous, by the
even-
way. I don't think I've ever been here. I was like,
even just
love it.
it's pretty.
beautiful.
Right? There's woods and there's
Oh, it's
like
stunning. I love it.
But I just feel like a lot of us live in such privilege, and our children, like I didn't grow up this way.
No.
I didn't grow up in a town like this.
No.
And by the way, money was not talked about in my household, which wasn't good.
Right.
So I have some trouble talking about it. Whereas my husband, like they talked about it all the time, and he has no issue talking about it. And I admire that about him.
Yeah.
But I see my kids, like you said, just being like, why can't we go on vacation? Why can't we do this? Because kids surrounding them are doing it. And I don't want my kids to grow up like that.
I agree. And I think it's hard to be like, you know, and I feel like this is where I age myself, where I'm like, back in my day, we went out to dinner once a year. On a birthday dinner.
No, true.
Like that was a big deal.
Yes.
And like, guess what? It wasn't like, because I'll be like, oh, like, do you want to have this or this tonight? And she's like, ooh, how about Five Guys? And I'm like,
Yeah, you're like,
where
no.
does this come from that you think this is fine?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is, you know, kind of like, oh, wow, no, maybe, ooh.
Yeah.
This isn't a treat
know.
anymore. So it is hard. So I want them to kind of understand that piece of it, or it's going to be a rude awakening, like it is for some of my younger clients that get a job that can barely pay their student loan.
Yeah.
And they're like, I feel like everything is just like, it's awful. You know, it's like, it's very depressing to go from, or I have a lot of people who are still financing their adult children's lives.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, no.
That's a whole different
Yeah.
topic.
And
for a
you're like,
different day.
okay, you know,
We were just talking
cool.
about
But because they're like used to a certain thing, and then they're kind of like, well, this isn't unfair. Everybody like, you know, this, everybody lied to
Everyone
me.
else has it. Yeah.
Everyone, I'm used to living this certain way. So I introduce it up front, and I want them to feel like comfortable talking about it too. 'Cause someday they're going to have a partner. And if somebody's just like, hey, you know, Natalie, why don't you sign over your paycheck to me, or we'll just put in this account. I want her to be like, no.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like
Not gonna
raising-
happen.
And like raising girls too. It's like I want to see them seeing me work,
Yeah.
and I know you guys feel
Yeah.
the same way of like, hey, mommy also brings in money to the house, as does dad, and I think that's so important, because another topic that we kind of got into in the beginning, but I think is also important, is these power dynamics in a marriage or relationship where
Yes.
if one partner is not working and the other partner is, that really can cause some tension. Or if one partner is making significantly more money.
No, that happens a lot. And like when I do plans with those types of relationships where there's like a non-income earning spouse that's working, like we'll talk about how much it would cost to replace all those jobs, and it's wild. It's like, okay, so let's see the value here, and like kind of to level up the playing field. Like,
Okay.
you aren't
like
the most
that.
important person because you have, you know, the income. Like this is how everything is going to work out, kind of on a more level playing field, because it's just kind of taken for granted at some points. But there's a lot of women that, you know, make maybe make more money, and they're just kind of seen as being in like the less. And it's like all of it matters, the work, the unpaid work, but just kind of making sure that people understand that it's not like you get to make all the rules.
That's such a good point. Like, hey, if I wasn't doing all these things, here's what we would be spending.
I think
to
it's
outsource
over
it.
200,000 a year at least.
You're kidding.
Yeah, not like
Hey,
childcare.
stay-at-home moms, are you listening?
I hope
Do
you're
you
listening
hear that?
because
Write that down.
you're so.
You are worth at
look
least
at
200.
the facts. Like, look at how much that the child care costs. The
Childcare is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's
like all of
insane.
those
It's wild.
things. The food, if you're doing like the meal, the cleaning, all of it, all of the work that's just like done has a you'd have to replace it if you
Love
weren't
that
there.
number you said,
It's not-
200K.
Yeah.
Stay-at-home moms, you make 200K a year. Don't
Yeah.
forget it.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't really get a lot of time off.
No,
you get
no
you
time
get
off.
any?
You get the hours that you're putting
Where's
in.
the vacation here?
There's no PTO when you're a
Right?
mom.
There's no like 2 weeks or nights you go
Wow.
home
Okay,
and,
so
and shut it down.
book
Like
the
Oh my
girls
gosh.
trip because
Yeah.
you deserve it, and it's your PTO.
Yeah, and I'm like, as
There's
soon
like a
as
mass
like that's
girls
under-
trip after this episode.
Yeah, I hope
Right?
so, because it's like it's just like it's not the paid work. It's not
Yeah.
not work.
What do you
Yeah.
What do you see? Let's flip the script. What do you see when women are out earning men? Because I know what I see in my friendships. There's a female breadwinner. There's a male who's still making money, but the female might out earn, and still the male, it feels like, has the power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, are you seeing those dynamics?
Yeah, sometimes I'll see like when I could see what people are making and spending and earning and stuff, they'll be like, oh, but he's so important. And like he does this and like, oh, well, if we didn't have this. And like, it's kind of like you could tell it's like kind of to boost the ego.
Yeah.
So they feel like super valuable because I'm a third party here seeing, maybe this hundreds of $1,000s of here and like this, like, maybe some income. And I see that a lot. And I think that some of the guys are totally cool with it. Some of them aren't.
Yeah.
And want to like make sure that I know that like things are going to change and they're coming. And I'm like,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Well, I
like
think
they
we-
get
yeah.
self-conscious that their
It
wife
is.
is
Yeah, no, but I
making
think
more.
that's all just like stereotypes
Yeah.
about like what you should and shouldn't be doing. So hopefully that changes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
more that like boys see their moms working and making money and like,
Yes.
where they'll be like, oh yeah, my wife's killing it. And I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Find those men.
Yeah. And they're going to, they're out
They're
there.
out there.
And men listening, like, be proud of your wife if she's killing it. Like, that's amazing because
Yeah.
I can tell you she's killing it. And she's also probably doing a lot of the stuff at home as well.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm lucky. I'm married to somebody who like, he doesn't like do my grocery shopping. Like he does the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Because I work in an office. He's working from home. He has like more flexibility. He coaches the kids. Like he,
Same.
it's not really seen as like, but his mom was a nurse. Like she worked and his dad worked and
Yeah.
his 2 sisters and like a brother. And like, I think once you see that as like, this is normal, then it doesn't become like I shouldn't be doing this stuff. I don't want anyone to know that like I'm actually the more domestic
Yeah.
oriented.
I feel like we're all really lucky. We have great hands-on husbands.
Yeah.
My husband won't let me grocery shop because he says I don't get any good
I
snacks.
spend too much money when I grocery shop.
I think my husband
Same.
spends too much money. I'm like, stop! I can cut this bill in half.
I hate
But he's
the
like, well,
grocery
you
store. I
don't
do
get
not
any
go.
snacks. He's like, there's nothing good to eat when
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
So like,
I know.
It's so funny.
The one thing that I was so fascinated by you is obviously you're a certified financial planner,
Mm-hmm.
but then you went back and became a life coach. And I think that was so important because these conversations are, again, you're having people in relationships come to you. Like I just,
they're twofold.
like how,
Yeah.
That's both the financial part and then the life coach part, because you are probably able to really help them outside of the money, but also
I
work
think
through
like,
issues.
the feelings are kind of left out of the financial equation with traditional financial advice. It's like, look at the numbers, look at the returns. Like a lot of people I talk to are like, I hate our financial advisor, or I don't like having those meetings because it's going to be like, well, why are you spending X here? X here? I don't care. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
if you've got
Yeah.
wines and more on your, transactions or shopping.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I just want to know like what's going on, why, how you feeling about it, what you
Yeah.
want to do next, and like kind of build towards that, because there is so much shame and guilt. And I think a lot of financial advisors have been also part of that. Like, you should be perfect. Like, why aren't you saving 10% of everything
Right.
you make, instead of being like,
living.
what are you doing? Okay, you're going to start a business. Like, we might have to go into some debt for this, or we might have to, have to look at everything that's available to us to make certain things happen and just to kind of be on the same like team with them instead of being like, like, I don't know, what percentage are you doing into your 401k this year?
Yeah.
Bump that up.
Strictly
Like it's boring.
Well, and right, some years it changes. Like some years you're really great at saving and some years you're doing something else.
Yeah, no, some people in COVID, they saved all this money because they weren't doing anything. And they're like, I feel kind of bad. What should I be doing with this? And I was like, okay, this is just life.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a weird opportunity to revisit everything we're doing and decide if we want to do more of it, change, like invest in yourself in certain things or start a business. Like that requires, a lot of effort and money, everything.
But I think you're right. It's also those ebbs and flows of those years you're saving a ton or years maybe you're not. There's usually something else going on. Yeah. And it is hard. And I feel like in my unpacking of habits that I've had over the years, it always stems back to my youth and to your exact point, like conversations you've been having. So I think you were talking a little bit too about like, how do we like approach these conversations at home in that power struggle of the couples?
Yeah. I think it's, and this is what I do with clients too. And a lot of times I will ask them what money was like for them growing up. You might know that with your spouse, it might be kind of something you see. And, but I'll ask because that does impact a lot of behavior in the future and a lot of things, patterns that you might have never questioned ever. And then they just feel like they're true. So that's where the life coaching part kind of helps too. And with your partners and stuff, if like I said before, like there's what we think, what they think, and what we think they think. And it's usually the worst case.
That.
It's terrifying what we think our boss is going to say. And we have these fake fights in our head over and over again. And then we like stress out about it. And then like, it's really hard. So yeah, I'll usually just get curious. I don't like to confront you. I don't really care how someone's spending, but if I do see like, well, you said you want this for a goal. Yeah. We're not doing anything. So we can look at what they tell me they want to do. Like, I want to retire. I want to like put my kids through college. I want to vacation more, all these things, start a business. But then if the money's going everywhere else but there, we have to kind of figure out why.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, some men will tell me I'm afraid if I retire, I'm just going to die. Like, I feel like if I feel like that's, and I'm like, well, what happened? And they're like, oh, well, my dad passed away when he was this age. And so, or he worked. And then once he stopped working, all these health problems and he just stood here. And I'm like, okay, that's really fueling a lot of your like money is not getting saved for the future. And so that'll happen too with, a lot of the people I work with where I'm like, hey, we want to, you said you want to start a business or you want to start a family. And we're not like, putting any money towards that. And it's just like, well, actually I'm afraid of a lot of things changing. And so our brains want to keep us exactly the same because we've survived, even if we're not happy.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
So
I know.
If we've survived this long without saving, if we've survived this long in credit card debt or in loan debt, and we say we want to get rid of it, but it's going to cause a lot of work to do it.
Yes.
Then sometimes it takes a little bit of coaching to get people to actually start to see past that goal. Like, well, once we get out of this debt, then what would we do with this money? And they haven't gotten that far. They're just like, I guess I'm just going to pay bills forever. And what's the point? So
I find this so fascinating.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Very cool.
It does feel like you're going to
cool job.
Yes,
yeah, you do. I feel
do.
like we could have you on like for multiple episodes.
I know there's so many topics.
I know there's been so many things that you've started to say, and I'm like, wait, I want to go there.
Me too.
Like, how do you save for kids' colleges? Because colleges right now are absolutely insane. Like, how is that?
I know.
That bubble's got to pop.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about that today, but whoa.
Yeah, no, but there's certain people that tell me like those are the big goals that they have. And then, okay, well, even if we direct something, because if we don't, then when that day comes, you're going to pull it from everywhere. Your retirement, your down payment, saving, all of that stuff, anything you wanted to do to put out that fire, where it's easier to do it now. Like when we can think about it, we have some time, and just kind of figure out like, okay, this is what we can actually do reasonably.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Maybe I won't get my hair done this quarter and I will put it into a college savings plan for my children.
Or sometimes, it's just like, okay, could we make more money? Because a lot of us are like, well, this is what I make. This is what I'm worth. And I'm like, what else could we do? And people don't even think about it. Like, if you had to create money right now, how would you do it? And like some of the people that don't have access to money and they're in those stressful situations, like that's what they have to think. Like, what can I sell? What can I do? Like, how can I actually get some money together? And you could figure it out, but we're just not asking our brains those questions.
Wow. Yeah.
I do like that question.
That's
Like,
so-
if
Me
I had to
too.
get money today, like what would I do?
Yeah.
It's good to have also like a disaster plan in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what I would cut if I had to, because when I left corporate, I didn't know how much I'd be making. I knew I made quite a bit at corporate, and I knew that it would take a while to, get the clients and get back up there. And so I had to talk with my husband and be like, this is, I'm going to be able to put this much, towards this. And we figured out a way to do it, but it did require changing things around a little bit. We didn't have to cancel it, but some of the nice to haves, like, we had like a house cleaner, like we cut certain things and then when we bring them back on because we can.
But that's great. Like you just started. And you had a very you had a supportive spouse, and that's very important.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I know you're crushing it. I can't believe.
Like a wealth of information. I will keep saying it.
Should we ask Misty some fun questions?
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we like to end every episode with just some fun questions so that our listeners can get to know you.
Well, obviously you're a mom.
Yes.
This is Mom's Night Out.
Yep.
So favorite Mom's Night Out? You get a night. What are you doing?
Yeah. So I'm finding that my favorite mom night outs are the ones that are very spontaneous lately. Like we have like the parents' night out. It's on the calendar and we're thinking about it for weeks. And I'm just like last night I played basketball at like a rec league, like a women's league.
So
and
fun.
so 3 other moms and I just like afterwards, so like, do you want to go get a drink? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Oh my
We
gosh,
stayed
I
out for like
love
an
that.
hour and a half, like sweaty, like just looked like a mess. But
Those are the
I really
best.
got to know like these 3 people, whose kids are in different schools than mine. And it was just so much fun. Like if somebody's like, hey, it's 70 degrees on a Sunday, like want to go sit on a patio. So like,
Yes.
like pick me up
Spontaneous
right
mom's night
now.
out.
And then we're good because the ones that have been like, okay, this event and like, what are you going to wear? What are you going to do? I end up being like, this was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
Such a good point.
Big
Spontaneous.
expectations.
Yep.
Okay. What surprised you most about being a mom?
Gosh. I think how much I like it. I was never a person who babysat. I never had kids around me at all.
Yeah.
I like was a substitute teacher for a very brief time, like after I graduated college in like 2002. And it was awful.
Awful. I can't imagine.
Teachers don't get paid
I
enough.
believe that though.
Unbelievable. Like
I've heard that
so
from
hard.
the experience there was just like, and and my sister, she's a professor. She teaches in the Department of Education, and my cousin worked at a daycare, and I'm the only one that had kids.
Oh my God.
Oh.
And no one could believe it. They're like, we figured you'd be like,
You're like, wait, Misty had the
running,
kids?
doing all these other things. And it just felt like, honestly, one of the most like natural things.
Yeah.
To me.
so sweet.
Like, I don't know. In every age, I've kind of loved it. Like, I love the
Yes.
little babies. I love the
agree.
toddlers, but I
Yeah.
never want to go back necessarily.
Yes.
Agreed. This
Like,
agreed.
right
Stages
now,
are
and-
so fun. I
know.
agree with you.
Like, it's been really like fun and,
Love that.
I love
That's
that. Such
sweet.
a good answer.
Very genuine.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay,
I
and
want to go
then
give my kids a hug.
last question. What is one thing that people, maybe your clients or people listening, would be surprised to know about you?
It's funny. I don't really like. I have a podcast, and I was a reality show host in 2020.
Yeah.
And
I
I
didn't
wrote
know
a
that.
book in that year as well.
You were
Wow.
super busy.
Oh my
Very
gosh.
busy. Yeah. So I worked on a show. I went out to California. It was funny. It was an Instagram post that my friend Emily, who I used to work with in corporate, that said, like, we're looking for a financial planner who can talk about, and we're looking for a therapist that can also talk about feelings for these 10 couples that we're going to have who have, it's called Heartbroke, and that they're about at their breaking point with money. And my friend Emily sent this casting call Instagram story to me and was like, I think they're looking for you. So I'm in my attic working. It's 2020. Like no one's doing anything. Like, and I was like, I sent like a message to this like casting director. And then they ended up having all these Zoom interviews. And my husband's like, are you getting human trafficked? Like you're getting on a plane. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like it was
legit.
so
Seems
bizarre.
legit.
And they're like, we're going to pay you, this much money to come out here. And we're going to go to these couples' houses and you're just going to have a talk with them about their money. And then you're going to come back 6 weeks later. And it was during COVID. I was getting tested every single day. I had to be quarantined in like
Wow.
a Airbnb.
So cool.
And
Hearing the
and we ended
backstory
up-
of this is amazing.
we ended up making,
And you had
a really
kids
interesting
during
show.
this time,
I
right?
did. And that part was like incredibly hard because
Yeah.
like they would not let me fly home or come back. But I was kind of like, this is such a
Unique opportunity.
when am
Yeah.
I going to do something like this ever again? And so, I did it. And that was, a lot of people probably don't, even my clients probably.
That is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And all during COVID.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just a really, certain opportunities
Were
come
you
up.
you were paired with a therapist, right? Or were
No,
you
actually,
both?
they
She was
didn't
both.
hire the therapist.
So you did
Okay.
both.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, actually, if they have the show again, the show is actually pretty successful. It was through wonderful foundation, Singleton Foundation, and Million Stories Media. So they're trying to combine financial literacy and entertainment.
Cool.
And so
I love
it was,
that.
they've had like Richard Sherman does like adulting. He's a football player and he talks about getting a checking account for the first time. All these things, like trying to make it like relatable for people, because so many people don't want to talk about this stuff or listen to it, or they find it boring. Some of the shows are boring, but this was like, it was really fun. And so for all the couples, everybody I talked to can see themselves in one of the people.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
No, like across the board, because we had people who were, afraid to spend. We had people who couldn't get their acting career off the ground and like wanted to not give up on their dreams. We had like people in the military, all of it. Like you had so many different people who really,
so cool.
in general, had a lot of the same concerns and same thoughts.
See, we're all the same, guys. You're
Yeah.
doing a great job out
you're
there.
definitely not alone if you feel messed up when it comes to your money sometimes.
True. It's a good,
That's
good one to end
line
on.
to end with, right? Like we're all dealing with the same things, and I think
You're not
I'm
alone.
taking away like more talking about this
Yeah,
stuff, right? Like we shouldn't be afraid to talk to our spouse and our friends about
Yeah,
money.
yeah, absolutely. And like, if people don't want to talk about it, it's probably because they were told like, oh, you shouldn't say that. That's rude. It's impolite. And I think we've never had more access to information. And so we could see people online sharing information, sharing stories, and I feel like maybe the people who help you figure out your money or whatever, maybe they're online groups or something who are interested in investing that aren't maybe your friends and family directly. But there's a lot of people out there who are trying to do a little better. And
Love that.
It's easy to find.
Yeah.
Misty, thank
Thank you.
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you.
And for all our listeners, tell them where they can find Misty.
Yeah. Well, Instagram. So go to the show notes and we'll link all of Misty's Instagram, her website, her podcast. So not only the book, Demystifying Money, but there's also the podcast, Demystifying Money, and the Heartbroke Show.
Yeah, that's all available on my website. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.